everybody, welcome back. My name is Daniel Gomali. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry, I'm just going for a study at the moment, which is essentially I'm trying to prove that Capablanca was not 27-25 strength. So, okay, this is the deal, right? Capablanca is listed as a chess bot on chess.com. His rate is 27-25. Now, my theory is, I think they just give these arbitrary, I don't think they're accurate ratings. They're giving Lasker's 2640, Paul Morphy is 2600. I don't believe Paul Morphy would have been a 2600 player. It's just too long ago. So my argument, I listed it on Twitter, and I said, I played Capablanca as one of the bots. Do people really think Capablanca will be? Do people think Capablanca would really be 27-25 FIDE rating if he was around today? More like 24-25. Jonathan Levitt said, why so low? I said, standards go up exponentially in all sports, John. Look at tennis and football. If you look at football matches in the 1920s, they're just walking compared to what they do now. Tennis matches, the same, right? Even 1960s, 1970s, they're much slower. Now you've got this speed game, power. The standards just go up massively in all sports. But bear in mind, there are improvements in nutrition, certainly improvements in racket technology in tennis, in golf. Like golf clubs, obviously, they're different from what they used to play. Used to play with cinnamon. Now they play with these huge sort of like driver heads, so they can, they've got more kind of room to make mistakes and margin for error, I should say. But yeah, but Jonathan Levitt also makes a valid argument. Bear in mind that, okay, standards go up in all sports, but chess technology has stayed the same in the sense that, yeah, you've got computers, but your actual board that you play with, you're still playing with your hands, your mind, and the board. And the argument could be that Capablanca's chess IQ was so high that he was, he was one of a kind, and therefore, well before Bobby Fischer got to 2700. Capablanca, if there'd been ratings around at that time, he would have been 2700. I think Bobby Fischer was the first player to be listed over 2700. The ratings only came out in about early 1970s, created by a Hungarian mathematician called Arpad Elo. And believe that Bobby Fischer was the first player to be listed over 2700. He then would have probably been followed by Karpov. I believe that Mikhail Tal is one of their bots, and it's true that he was over 2700, but that came in the latter part of his career. I think earlier on in his career he was a very exciting player, but he probably became more of a dull player. So maybe that's a lesson for all of us, that you need to be a dull player to become 2700. Of course, so Fischer was 2785, I believe that was his highest. He then went down after he beat Spassky. Same thing might happen to Gukesh, because he's beaten a lower rated player. That even if he wins, he might lose rating. Gukesh, then it would have been Karpov, then possibly Tao, and then potentially followed by Kasparov, would have been in the fourth. I'm not certain about the order. Interesting as well that they have these bots. Do they have to potentially pay the estate of Capablanca to use his likeness, or do they just don't bother? Because you would think that a company making tens of millions a year, they've dropped the Kramnik bot because of the problems that they've had with Kramnik. Magnus Carlsen, are they paying Magnus? Are they paying Vichy? Are they paying these people the same, or is it a different amount? I mean, we don't know, do we? I'll be interested if anyone's got any knowledge on that, please list it below. But anyway, it's an interesting debate. So what I thought I would do was, I don't have Capablanca any 2700s compared to. What I've done actually, I picked out one guy who's 26-28 who's playing in the European Championships, which is going on at the moment. I believe it's in Montenegro or somewhere like that. And I've also picked out a 24-20, 24-30 player who is currently running about his rating. He might be losing about 1 point. This guy called Constantin, I'm not sure about the pronunciation of his surname, Peyrer from Austria. So Rasmus Svane is from Germany. He's a very solid player, very good player. His brother also plays chess, also doing very well in the tournament. Interesting that he's called Rasmus, and he's got a brother who's very good. It's almost like the golfers. There's a guy called Rasmus Højgaard, anyone follows golf, who's very good, and he's got a twin brother called Nikolai, who's also very good at golf. Anyway, so what I thought I'd do is see how accurate the games are. Now, the first game I've done, I picked out 5 random games. Trust me when I say these are random games I picked out. I picked out a game Capablanca played in the early 1920s. This is shortly after he became world champion. I believe he became world champion in the early 1920s. And he played a tournament. I believe these games were from a tournament in New York. And he played against some of his contemporaries. The first game he did lose. He scored 87% accuracy. Now, obviously, this is not a conclusive study I'm doing. It's just a bit of fun. You'd have to do hundreds of games of Capablanca, compare them to the players around today to see how accurate he was compared to the players he was today, to estimate his strength, you know, and run them through an algorithm. You'd have to have a very exhaustive study to really give him a... It'd be very interesting if someone was to do it and effectively rate the players of yesteryear. I think there is almost a mathematical way to do it, but obviously it requires a bit of time. Is there an appetite for it? We don't know. Let's have a look at the second game. I think I was close to rating this game. This was a fairly accurate game by Capablanca. He was white in this game and he scored 95%. So that's pretty good. That would compare with the top players today. Let's have a look at this third game. How accurate was this game? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the percentages together. So that 95 is a lovely score for Kappa against Alekhine. Alekhine I read a bit about recently. There was a story about him when he died. There was some rumour that he was possibly bumped off by Soviet agents because obviously he would have been considered something of an enemy of the Soviet state as he was an emigre. He was from quite a rich aristocratic family. His brother also played chess, which I wasn't aware of. His brother was called Alexei. He stayed in Russia though. He was faithful to the Soviet regime. Alexander Ilyichin wasn't, and therefore he got punished. Okay, very good for the second game. This is looking good for Kappa. He's on 97% for the third game. You know, bear in mind that I've just taken these games out randomly. They didn't have computers. This is starting to back up Jonathan Levitt's argument. But of course we can't, you know, we're only going off 5 games. But, you know, wow. He scored, no, that's not quite right. It's going down a bit. The fourth game, it's taken a while. Capablanca played with 94% accuracy. So the first game's looking like a bit of an outlier. Even Janowski didn't play with a bad level of accuracy. I believe, who's David Janowski? Sounds Jewish, right? There's a lot of players around about that era who were Jewish, played chess. Even though we get a lot of anti-Semitism now, it was probably a lot more prevalent back in that era. And therefore it would have been a refuge for Jewish intellectuals to play chess. There was also, obviously, you know, Vienna was associated with chess to a large extent, as with places like Prague. And they were hubs of, you know, Jewish life before, obviously, the Nazis created these kind of terrors during the World War II. And then you had Lasker, who I mistakenly believe was the brother of Emanuel Lasker, former world chess champion, but it was not. He's actually, Lasker is a different person, not no relation, but also a very strong chess player. Let's have a look at this game. My maths are very poor, by the way, so... Okay, so we've got... Capablanca was black in this game, right? There were a few mistakes in this game. But he played with 96%. I mean, these are very high scores, actually, I would say. So it's looking good for Capablanca. Let's have a look at Rasmus Svane. First game, he wins with black. He's playing a good player. What's the number that he's getting? You know, of course, bear in mind that Capablanca had to make do with the resources he had at the time. If you brought him with his talent and you started him from scratch and gave him the resources that are around today, with the knowledge that's around today, who knows what rate he could achieve? He could have maybe been, he could have been, potentially have been 3,000 at the first 3,000 rated player. So Svane gets 93. So it's higher than Capablanca's first game, but as we saw with Capablanca, he picked up after that. So all the same happened with Rasmus Svane. Not a great score, I must admit, for a game where... Should we have a quick look at that game? Where he wins with black against quite a strong player. Neither of these players are doing especially well in the tournament, but they're doing okay. Rasmus is doing amazingly. That's a nice move. Or is it? So he ends up winning the rook, but then black gets a bit of play. Yeah, knight g4 is annoying. Knight f2 is very annoying. Knight d3, very nice trick. Knight, ooh, yeah, that's kind of scary, right? Queen b3, very strong. Crushing. So let's have a look at the next game. How accurate is this game? Rasmus is white. Bear in mind a lot of these fairly tame draws are often very accurate games. So draws are often the more accurate ones. Let's have a look. Not always. Not always. Didn't score amazing here. We got 92%. Still not bad. Not bad. No, sorry, I'm wrong. It's 93. It's gone up to 93. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Also a draw. Was this a high percentage? He's black in this game. I'm not sure what time control they use here. Can he get a high one? Can he get in the high 90s? You'd think he'd be good enough to get in the high 90s. Okay, I think this is a fairly quick draw. Let's just check that that was the case. Wow. Okay, that's crazy. This is, I don't know if this is some kind of theory line, but this is just crazy, like insane theory. I'm not. Well, he scored 99%. That's really high. But again, a lot of it's, they didn't have that level of preparation back in the 1920s. You know, it was more like Capablanca predicted a lot of this stuff. You know, he said death by draws, and he was right. This is really the death of Rasmus's tournament. The chance to win the tournament is by draws. Okay, let's have a look at game 3. Of Rasmus, so that's obviously helped his cause. He's gone up to 99%. So at the moment he's probably favourite to finish above Lasker. Sorry, Capablanca, I should say. Okay, this game was a draw, right? We've got one more Rasmus game to go after this. 99% accuracy. God, these guys are like robots, right? Okay, very dull. Yeah, often these kind of games where not much is going on. Very, very accurate. It shows, yeah, the standard in chess now is crazy, right? There's people like, I mean, I wouldn't have heard of Rasmus a few years ago. I've not really heard of this guy that much. It does vaguely ring a bell, that name, actually. I'll be honest. But it's not, yeah. But the standard in chess is crazy. And, yeah, for them both to be scoring 99% is a bit sick, really. bit of a dull game from an early stage, but very, very accurate. So that's 299% in a row. Can he get 3 in a row? So he's obviously a very accurate player. This is one of his strengths. When he's on, he's very accurate, very well prepared. His brother is also doing very well in the tournament. He's more in contention to win it, I would say. Only last round today, I think Daniel De Harder is playing against Indich, or it was mispronounced his name. Another game. I swear to God, I pick these games out randomly. This is another game where he's scoring 99%. Okay, so yeah, it's probably another one where it's just loads of theory. I don't ever want to play these guys, I can say, because they're like super accurate. They're human computers. But of course, it's easy to score. I wouldn't say it's easy to score, but it's easier to score a high percentage when you don't take much risk. Look at this opening; it's very dull. When you get a boring position, these guys aren't going to make. It's much harder to score a high percentage when the game is super sharp, when there's exciting stuff going on. This is the death by draws, the Capablanca. It's a very dull opening. Seems like he's happy to draw with a lot of these guys with black. Just take the draw with black. Typical Russian approach. He's actually German. Okay, so we know his numbers now. We're gonna add them all up at the end and see who gets the best percentage. Let's have a look at Constantin Peyrer. So this is, I would say, a typical 24-30 in a way, because he's playing to his rating. Well, he has been in this tournament. He's a typical 24. Don't know the guy. I presume he's fairly young. Most of these people are. He's playing against Pico Jurovic. Let's have a look at how accurate Constantin Peyrer played with black. 3 inaccuracies. My guess is he's probably going to score less than Capablanca, less than the other two, but you know, in terms of percentage. So he scores 91. So it's higher than, he's 4.4 ahead of Capablanca for the first game. No, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong guy. So he's actually 96 for the first game. Bear in mind, these are 5 random games. You'd have to do far more games to get an accurate figure. You'd probably have to run all. There's probably a way to check the quality of the moves. You know, I'm just talking about the accuracy of the games, which is only one indicator to how strong a player is. You know, the pure quality of the moves is something else. But I don't know how to check that. There probably is a way to check it. But yeah, if you randomly transport Capablanca, you don't give him any extra knowledge. Is he like a 27, 25? This is the question that I would ask. I would argue that he's probably not. But yeah, I'm quite happy to agree that he could well have been 2600 level. I mean, certainly players from, say, the 1960s weren't much stronger, or any stronger probably than Capablanca were. You didn't have computers back then either, so, you know, what was the big exponential jump? I think there was an exponential jump in professionalism from the Kasparov era. Certainly Bobby Fischer brought that in, you know. He did like a lot of tennis, played a lot of sports. Was you know, ridiculously hard worker. And then the level of chess, I think, leapt up a little bit in the Kasparov-Karpov era as well. You know, it became more like a professional sport. So that game was 95, also very strong. Yeah, these are good figures. These are figures of a strong GM. Right, let's have a look at the next game, even though he's only performed, you know, 2400. It still, you know, shows the strength and depth. Players you've never heard of. I mean, most of these players, I've heard of Jordan. I've played Jordan Van Forest. He's the only one I lost to Jordan Van Forest, unsurprisingly. Okay, so he's not getting the same numbers as Rasmus, but he's getting very like mid 90s, right? So I think really what's going to let Capablanca down was that first game, was that bad game, right? If you take that game out, it's probably his figures are very close to the, you know, very similar to the other players. Let's have a look at his next game. It was a draw, and he was white in this game. Okay, this is a lower one. This this was a poorer game. It was 90%. Let's have a look at that game actually. Where were the mistakes? He's playing against Vladislav Fischuk. Bit of a weird opening, but apparently this is some sort of theory. Again, theory that I'm not aware of. Oh, okay, so it started going wrong for White with this rook d1 move. Apparently should have taken and just allow this counter attack. Kind of scary, yeah, because I think there's some line later on. If you go f2, maybe there's a knight g4, queen e1 idea. Maybe, although can a knight go back to h3? Not. I suppose d2 would hang then as well. Yeah, other problems. So this starts to go wrong for White. But somehow he holds anyway. Yeah, looks better for Black. So to say, well, this game is not so good, and maybe Shomway is 2400 and not 2600 because there's not the consistency. There's a game where he's dropped off and he's only scored 90%. Still good, don't get me wrong, but okay. This game he lost against a very strong player, Jordan Van Forest, former second to Magnus Carlsen, one of the best young players around, and also former winner of Viscount Zay. I played Jordan Van Forest in tournament in Bataya in Amsterdam quite a few years ago. He was only 15 at the time. Okay, so this one he's scoring 88% accuracy. So it's looking like, right, okay, let's total up the scores. So let me do a calculator. And I'm going to do the numbers. I'm going to run the raw numbers. So first guy I'm going to put in is Capablanca. And he's got 87 plus 95 plus 97 plus 94 plus 96 equals 469, that's his number, divided by 5. His average number for those 5 games is 93.8. We're now going to look at Peyrer. I believe his number will be lower, but maybe not much lower. Maybe in the 92s. Okay, how do we start to get right? So we got 96 for Peyrer plus 90. Oh, hang on. Start again. So 96. Yeah, this is why you need to run a lot more, because there's obviously a lot of. Sorry, I'm bad. I'm distracting myself. 95 plus 95 plus 90 plus 88 equals 464 divided by 5, 92.8. So we got 93.8 and 92.8, and then we got Rasmus, who's a 28 player. His current rating, he's got 93. Plus 93 plus 99 plus 99 plus 99 equals 483 divided by 5 equals 96 point. Okay, so based on those numbers, I mean, if you were purely going off those numbers, Capablanca's probably coming out around about a 2,500 player, right? But these are only 5 games, so you can't you can't possibly say that over 5 games. I mean, I'm willing to admit he could well have been 2,600 level, you know, but I don't believe that he would have been 2,700 level. That would just be my argument, I guess. I mean, I think what Levitt has said is partly backed up because he's scoring higher than a 24-30 player, who's obviously a very talented chess player. He's got all the information around today. You know, he's got chess base, he's got a laptop, playing loads online, playing hours and hours. And Capablanca from the 1920s is still a more accurate player than he is. And that player is about the same strength as me. So Capablanca is a stronger chess player than I am, even from the 1920s. Well done, Capablanca. I'm not bitter at all. But yeah, I'd say the rough. I think I do feel that their ratings are a bit silly. I mean, I don't think Lasker should be coming out at 2640 either. I believe that he would have been 2550 strength, Lasker, in my opinion. I think Capablanca, I would say, would probably be about low 2600, is my guess. I mean, 24-25 is an exaggeration, of course. I think he's stronger than that. He's proven even by that short. I know we were only talking about 5 games, but I think that 24. I mean, I'd get similar numbers probably to that as well as a 24. And I certainly don't get anything like 96.6. That would be a strong GM kind of. So I think Capablanca would be maybe somewhere around 2550 to low 2600 strength. And I believe that Lasker would have been somewhere like low 2500 to 2550 strength. Morphy, I would have said, would have been a 2400 player, because I just feel like the standards go up. So the standard book by the time the Capablanca and Lasker were playing were higher than when Morphy was playing. Although Morphy was, again, a little bit like Capablanca, that he was ahead of his time, he was an outlier. And of course there's a jump, and then you go to players like Tau, and that was another era, standards were higher, people were stronger by that point, and Tau was a genuine 2700 player. And then of course you go on to people like Anand and Carlsen, who were phenomenal, Dingler and so on. So anyway, that's my short kind of exposition of my argument. I don't seem to have concluded much there, other than over the 5 games, Rasmus Svane scored the highest with 96.6. Capablanca was number 2 with 93.8, and Constantin Peyrer was 3rd with 92.8. But as I said, if anyone knows anyone out there who's willing to run a test, I'd be very interested to run a much longer test. To be very interesting to really find out exactly how strong Capablanca was. I do think in chess probably the standards don't go up as much as in other sports. As I said before, the technology in other sports has really made a huge difference. In a more athletic sport, possibly standards go up even more. With chess, the technology stays the same. You're still playing against the boards. It's you against the board. Somebody's IQ. Capablanca's IQ, chess IQ, was exceptional, and would have been exceptional in any era. What I would say, but I do think the collective consciousness, the collective IQ of the chess community goes up over time. So therefore, certain ideas become ingrained in your thinking, in the overall thinking. Certain moves people just reject now because they know they're bad. Whereas back in the 1920s, they wouldn't have done that so much. And because the collective IQ increases, therefore the IQ, I would say, of the exceptional players also increases to a certain degree. So therefore the overall standard at the top goes up. And Capablanca, therefore, I would say 27-25 is an exaggeration. I believe he would have been more like, they want to give people higher ratings because it makes them look better, makes these players look more attractive to play. But I believe he would have been probably around about, as I said, like something like 2550 to low 2600 strength. 2400 is an exaggeration. But yeah, I mean, Capablanca was clearly an awesomely talented player, as was Morphy. If you took them to today's era and you gave them all the resources that are around today, all the knowledge that's around today, who knows what they might have achieved. They might have been ahead of Magnus Carlsen. We just don't know. So you can't say, well, that player was rubbish because his rating is no good compared to the players of today. They were great for their era. So it's not really about comparing how strong they were. I just was interested to test run a Capablanca. You can't really compare. Say you wanted to compare a footballer from the 1920s or 1930s to a footballer from today. You couldn't really compare the data. There's probably a way that you could freeze the videos and look at all the, the amount of running they do and stuff like that. But you can't compare the data as much as you can in chess. It's because chess is a mathematical game and all those games are available. You can pretty much, I think, work out exactly how strong Capablanca was. Anyway, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your comments down below. Are you in any way aware of this? Do you have any knowledge on these kind of subjects? Please leave your comments. What do you think? Do you think standards go up over time? Do you think players of today are stronger than they ever were, or do you think that we're seeing a decline in strength? Please leave your comments. I'm always fascinated to see the amount of comments that I get on these videos. It's always an interesting subject.